and welcome to Off the Fence, brought to you in association with Bet365. This is your weekly rundown of all things jump racing, and we have plenty to get through as always, so we're going to crack straight on with a look back at the action we saw on the track over the last 7 days, and we're going to head straight to Cheltenham, straight to the International Hurdle, and straight in with the talking horse of the day, which was of course the return of Goshen over hurdles, who then disappointed, and latterly we've realised that he had a problem. Straight to you, Tony. When you were watching the race, what was your assessment of, well, the race as a whole, I guess? It's got champion hurdle contenders in there. Did you think it sort of lived up to scratch?
Probably not, Vanessa. First thing that struck me, I suppose, was the ride on Goshen, that Jimmy Moore was fighting the horse from a long way out, which I thought was quite unusual given the way he'd been ridden last year, especially in the Triumph Hurdle. I thought they might have liked to force the pace, and I see Gary Moore saying on Sunday they kind of regretted that. They found out that he couldn't really be ridden like that. I thought it was quite a defensive ride. Things I suppose hadn't gone right in the run up to the race. Maybe they were trying to preserve him a little bit, but it didn't work out. He had blown himself out really coming to the straight. I don't really want to crap on Goshen here or anything like that. It's just very disappointing, really, from a point of view of the champion hurdle. He's sort of a non-superpower horse for that, not a JP horse, not a Willie Mullins, not a Gordon Elliott, and he would have added a lot to the race. But it's just, looking back, the Triumph is working out. Like it seems to be quite a good race. All Mankind has come out and won a Grade 1. Aspire Tower looks like he might be up to that level too. But Goshen just hasn't come back the same horse for whatever reason. It might be a thing, the Triumph Hurdle, which sadly he didn't get the win, was his hawk wing in the Lockinge moment. One of these brilliant performances that may not be repeated. And this thing about the irregular heartbeat is a little bit worrying. I suppose we have a number of high profile examples of it. Barry will be well able to talk about Sprinter Sacra, Denman being another one. Henry de Bromhead had one that ran and won at Punchestown last week. Captain Guinness, I thought it was a very positive one that he was back out so quick after his irregular heartbeat. But Goshen, hard to know what you would do with him now. Is it going to be a little rush for Cheltenham? Surely he gets a little bit of time off now. But just disappointing all round.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you there, and I think the distress signals for me, Barry, were there quite early on, just the way he was hanging a bit and raced too keenly, and like Tony touched upon the actual ride. This heart irregularity issue, just what's your view on it, and what does the comeback road look like for Goshen now?
Well, I don't think it was a serious case of it, where Sprinter Sacra was lacklustre from word go, and he only got halfway down the back when I had to pull him up. It took him a good while to recover from that, and the horse will tell himself when he's ready, because he'll come back to life. He'll be full of spark, and away he goes. He's working well, but so it's a wait and see, I gather. But like that Captain Guinness, as Tony mentioned, he recovered reasonably quickly. Some of them, the heartbeat resets itself, if you like. So, and if that's the case, he could be back, early in the spring. But it's just wait and see how the horse is, really. But that the irregular heartbeat itself, it can be caused naturally. It can be caused, it can be caused from a lack of electrolytes into the body, which it could be a mix up in feed or anything, if you like. So it's different causes. It's an irregular beat, and obviously that affects the blood flow, which affects the oxygen. So it's not getting to the parts of the body where it's needed. So it has a major effect on a horse. But as you say, he ran well for a long way, as did Captain Guinness in his earlier run. So you'd like to think he'll recover quickly. But as regards the horse himself on the day, he had a tendency to jump to his right previously. He does have a tendency to hang to his right, which I don't think plays to his strengths going around Cheltenham. No. And when you're taking on experienced horses like that, like he did on Saturday, it was a competitive race, albeit it probably wasn't vintage. When you're taking on those horses with that level of experience, you need to be doing everything right. And if you're jumping right and pulling right, he wasn't even jumping right, but he was hanging right, and that makes it harder for Jamie to settle him, because he never actually relaxes and stops pulling, because he's constantly leaning and pulling out to the right. So it's a difficult ride, and it's a very difficult one to take on. But experience is the thing that's going to help him. But I think he's always going to find it easier going the other way for now, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I thought the hanging for me was I thought it was worse than what we've seen him do previously at the weekend. But for now, then Barry, he's a 20-1 shot now with Bet365 for the champion hurdle. He's really on a recovery mission. I mean, he was already on a bit of a recovery mission, but he really is now. Do you genuinely still think that horse has the potential to win a champion hurdle?
I think he has. Albeit I didn't fancy him for Saturday for other reasons, but I think he's a horse with a lot of potential. Like, he was going to hose up in the Triumph Hurdle, and it has worked out a good race. So he has the potential, but you'd be brave to back him at 20-1 for the Champion Hurdle after what happened to him on Saturday. So, but he has, whether it's this year or next year, he definitely he's a big player along the way.
Okay, so we're keeping the faith then. Viewers, we want you to get involved. What did you guys make of Goshen? I know a lot of people have plenty to say on the race and Goshen and his prospects for the future. So get involved. Give us a little message in the comments section on YouTube or tweet us, anything you like. We want to hear from you, basically. But it leads us on. Actually, sorry, we can't leave the international hurdle without talking about the winner. That really would be rude. Song for Someone for the informed Tom Simmons team. Just such a game performer. Just keeps coming out, and then you think he's going to get beat, and he just pulls out a little bit more. Tony, he looks like a real... I mean, he's a horse you'd love to own, isn't he? What a day. How many great days is he giving those lovely owners of his? And I don't know if he's a genuine champion hurdler. Is he? I'm not entirely sure, but he's an admirable performer.
I'd love to own either of the first two. I think the first two are two cracking horses, to be quite honest with you. I think the taking out of the hurdles was probably more against the winner. In the sense that he's quite a good jumper, although I do think he would have been suited by the emphasis and stamina. I was on to Simon Rowlands there earlier, just asking him about what does he think about hurdles been taken in and taken out, and he says on average every hurdle is taken out takes 0.6 of a second off the time, so the faster the race the greater emphasis and stamina, and that would have suited Song for Someone because he did tend to get off the bridle a little bit in the middle part of the race but came home really well. But to me, I think the champion hurdle going back onto the old course wouldn't be ideal for him with how he raced there. I think the new course there, good emphasis and stamina at last, they suited, and he only just got home. I think the entry hurdle might be more of a race for him. The second Silver Streak, he was probably unlucky. He didn't get a clear run, and he might well have won with a clear run, although he would have been suited by not having to jump 3 of the 8 hurdles because he has a habit of clatter 1 or 2 along the way. But again, a very likeable horse in his own right. Whether they're up to... we kind of know they're not up to Epatant standards, but they would be on the cusp of hitting the frame, I would think, in March. I do think Song for Someone would need a very strongly run race.
Yeah, I think frame hitters for sure. Barry, all joking aside, obviously Aidan Coleman was immediately saying that Song for Someone should head to Aintree. Would you genuinely be in agreement with that?
Sure, it makes sense to say it, and obviously it makes great sense for Aidan because he has Epatant in the Champion Hurdle already.
Is that the sort of trick you would have tried to pull in the past when you were riding?
I don't think me now, but there is others would have done that, but definitely not me.
Golden boy.
But the Champion Hurdle is a hard race to pass up on, and you know, Lady Gibbons, I'm sure she'd love to be there. I've ridden some winners for over the years for Nikki, and she's a great woman, and she'd enjoy her day out in Cheltenham, so I'd be surprised if she passes up the opportunity on that, and especially then with the Thyme Champion Hurdle first day of the festival. So no, I'd imagine he'll find his way to Cheltenham, but it was a good performance. He's only 5 and he's rising 6, so he's still open to improvement, and he's shown good improvement. He showed good pace quickening from the front over further in Ascot, so I think a strong run Champion Hurdle will suit him, and whether he's good enough we'll know in time, but he's definitely he's one who's creeping into the frame.
Yeah, for sure, and an improver who knows where his ceiling's going to be. He's 16-1 at the moment with Bet365 for the Champion Hurdle, and I think that's a pretty fair price because, like Tony said, who knows what's going to line up on the day, but I think he's a horse who could well hit the frame anyway. But Tony's already mentioned it. We can move on to the offence section of the show and talk about the fences and hurdles being omitted at this time of year due to the dreaded low sun issue. it gets banged on about all the time at specific tracks normally, and then we get told that a certain amount of hurdles or fences are coming out because essentially the jockeys cannot see a thing. Tony, what's your view on this? Do you agree that fences should be taken out, or do you think they should just crack straight on?
Oh, I'd be inclined to think they should be taken out. National hunt jockeys, not known for their self-preservation instincts. I think if they're saying they want them taken out, we can probably take it that's a good reason enough for me. I suppose there's a couple of questions I want to ask Barry about it. Barry, what's the procedure for taking them out? Like, is there like one big conversation between the stewards and the starter telling the jockeys, or are the jockeys communicating with the stewards? How does that work?
Yeah, it's generally the jockeys, the clerk of the course, the starter. You know, we'd know on the day, low sun, you'd know the hurdles that might be potentially affected by it. There's a bit of cloud coming in or not, and you're trying to get down to start, see how it looks. The starter might say to you, have a look at the offensive hurdle, if you like, on the way down and see. And the decision is made. It's made between everyone in the best interest. But it is, I've been there. I won the international hurdle on Grand Jouet a good few years ago and went at the last, and we couldn't see it with the sun. We were obviously happy at the start, or there was no weight or bearing put on the sun on the day, but I promise you we couldn't see the last, just bunny hopped across it and raced away again. So there's plenty of days over the years when it's been like that. Kicking King's King George down the back in Kempton, you couldn't see a thing, and you get away with it, but it's the day someone gets a horror fall, and then we're saying, maybe we should have taken that one out. So it's erring on the side of caution, but it's only for those couple of months. I suppose late November or the start of December through to the end of January, when the sun's at its lowest. That's when it really kicks in. But no, it's a real issue. And when you're travelling at 40 miles an hour with a pair of goggles half covered in mud, and you're in the position you're in and you're only peeping out through the top of your helmet, vision isn't great. And then you stick in when you can't see the sun, can't see the hurdle with the sun. It's not a good position.
And Barry, how would you feel about the run of the race? How do the taking out the obstacles affect it from a pace point of view, and also I suppose from a troubling running point of view? Sometimes you see jockeys having to shift dramatically one way or the other to get around it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Position counts for a lot when you're bypassing, and if you're travelling well, you can force yourself into a position. But it is tricky. It does put more emphasis on stamina, because straight away lads will press on earlier. And the hurdle as well, because for the 2 or 3 strides approaching a hurdle, it depends what stride you're meeting the hurdle on, whether you're pressing forward or sitting. So a horse gets a chance to fill his lungs. So it suits the non-stair to be jumping more. So more emphasis is on stamina in that situation then.
I can just imagine the boys and girls on bad jumpers down at the start, and there must have been times where you were thinking, come on, we'll crack on, it'll be absolutely fine. You'll get someone saying, no thanks, not today, hurdles omitted. I'd be with them, safety first approach.
Oh, definitely. No, I was in Doncaster one day and riding a favourite for Nicky in a novice hurdle, and the boys were saying about the tree in the straight didn't look great, and I thought it looked okay and didn't want to say anything, but I would have liked the hurdles in because I had a good jumper. But when we actually went bypassing them, you could barely see them with the sun, so I was happy as we bypassed the first that it was the right decision.
Yeah. Right, we can move on then to what we saw elsewhere. Tony, you like the look of Sizing Potsy when he won in the week, or maybe not so much the look of him, but the Felix Desjardins form.
Yeah, I thought this was probably, it's been a quiet enough weekend Irish racing wise, but I thought the Sizing Potsy race was a very good race. Sizing Potsy's turned inside out since he's gone chasing. I think he's had 4 runs over fences on heavy ground, and he's won 3 of them. And he was second to Felix Desjardins on the other one at Punchestown back in November. So that looked a really good run out of Felix Desjardins, the way he picked up Sizing Potsy, quite an aggressive ride. Jack Kennedy never seemed to panic. That was only Felix Desjardins' second run over fences. Had been off a little while prior to running at Killarney. I don't know, is he a Cheltenham horse, but he would be a very interesting horse going to Leopardstown on St Stephen's Day for that 2 mile race. He looks one to be interesting. And just broadly, I do think these races are excellent, these novice handicap chases that attract the good horses. Kevin Blake has a good article there on the website just about maybe the inflated graded programme. Like that race there on Saturday, it had a bit of everything. You'd Sizing Potsy who'd already run a graded race, you'd the Grand Annual winner, you'd a few JP horses you were wondering what to do with, and you had a small trainer finishing third. What's this? His name was Cuspa Carabelli. That's actually an interesting horse in its own right. I thought it ran very well. There was nothing, I suppose, particularly eye-catching about it, but the horse was wrong at the weights, running over a trip that was too sharp, and he'd shaped quite well before that at Punchestown, coming off a very slow gallop that Chaviartis set. I think he can win a little race definitely with the option dropping grid, and he's actually an interesting horse as well. I don't know, do you remember at Galway, Matthew Smith won the Blazers with Mains Made Up, and this horse seemed to come out of nowhere in the straight. He just popped up as if some sort of weird optical illusion, nearly nutted him on the line, so he would have a little bit of stamina to be running well over 2 miles. But I just think that race, as I say, it had a little bit of everything. It had full each way betting, good field. You had the top trainers, you had the smaller trainer willing to have a go, and even if you look throughout the calendar, there's loads of other examples of these races working out well. Like Punchestown have won there in the big meeting. Recent winners would include Kemby and Ryle Steel. Like if you put on the handicaps and you make them run on the big weights for good money, you'll get these kind of graded animals. Even there this year, that race wasn't run, but it was run actually at the same meeting, I think the same day as Felix Desgy won. Tornado Flyer was second. He's coming on and going to run second in a John Dorkin. Loads of examples just in the calendar. There's a great novice handicap hurdle there at the Fairyhouse Easter meeting. There's a good novice handicap chase at Naas in, I think it's February time, Trials Day. So just something they could look at rather than maybe always going for the graded races, which only suit, really, to be honest. I think I was looking today at the stats, 600 graded races, non-handicaps run in Ireland, I think in the last 5.5 seasons. I think William Munn and Gordon Elliott have won something like 60% of them, you know. Maybe to look at something that would facilitate some of these other trainers.
Yeah, I hear you. We want competitive racing. That's what it's all about, competitive racing. We can rattle on though now to a bit of question time because like I said earlier, we love hearing your comments, we love reading your comments, and we also love your questions. You've been sending in some very good questions actually, and so we'll go straight over to Gary Mulroy, who said, where should Mick Winters go next with Chatham Street Lad? # Mayo for Sam. Barry, I'll throw that one your way. Where might we see Chatham Street Lad next?
Well, where he go next? I suppose he has the novice option now. Like, he was 141 going into Saturday. He's going to get a good belt for winning that. So he's looking at, you know, somewhere in the mid 50s, 150s. So you'd imagine he's well exposed now in a handicap. So he'd go back to the open novices, I'd imagine. As regards the festival, the Marsh will be the obvious one. You take Envoy Allen, but he has the option of the Ryanair, which you take on Min and more. So you'd imagine the novice route is probably the route he'd take. But Mick's a brilliant trainer. He'd done a brilliant job with him, and more importantly, Darrell O'Keefe, who's a very good rider and was flying last season, but just doesn't seem to have the same ammunition this year. He showed, you know, if you go through the race, I picked my tracker horse for later on from it, and if you look at the race, the mid part of the race, they went very fast, and Dara sat. I know the horse won easily or won well, but he made all the right decisions at all the right times. He didn't get involved. He saved his horse. He delivered his challenge at the right time. So it was just a very intelligent ride. And he's a rider who definitely deserves a good job.
Yeah, he definitely advertised his talents pretty well on the big stage on Saturday. And the way the horse won the race, like, it's hard to kind of put a figure on a performance like that in a way, because I mean, he literally looked like he jumped in with 2 fences to run once they hit the hill, and then he kicked on. Tony, Chatham Street Lad's currently 20-1 for the Ryanair, and he's 16-1 for the Marsh Novices. Do you think he's up to that sort of level? Is that a fair price for him? What did you make of the pretty impressive performance? Yeah,
he was reminiscent of Tranquil Sea, I think, winning the old Paddy Power, just tanked through the whole race. Very hard to rate, really, because it seemed to come out of nowhere. It was at least in the mid 150s. It could have been hitting the 160. Where would he go next? The Flow Gas at Dublin Racing Fest. He kind of has to go the graded route now. Back for the Marsh, he'd probably want a Marsh as well. That's the only thing. He might want a little bit of cut. One thing I would say now, I'd be delighted for Mick Winters, but I don't like some of this old stage Irish and stuff that people are nearly expecting from him every time he trains a winner. People asking him to roll on the ground. A load of old nonsense, to be honest. Like, the chap is after training a great winner. Just let him celebrate it. I know he is, in inverted commas, a character, but don't just take the mick out of him altogether, if you excuse the pun.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and we've got evidence to suggest he's a very good kisser. Barry sent a very nice photo of the two of them. But no, we can move on again. Adam has asked, does Barry think Chantry House should be a 3-miler? Maybe that's what he's trying to say. And what was the thought behind both entries this week? Will his next race be over the 3 miles? He was disappointing, Barry, wasn't he? I mean, I'm not sure what went wrong there, but disappointing.
No, he was. You'd have to be disappointed. He looked like a 3-miler on Saturday. But, he was third in the Supreme last year. He showed lots of pace there. He should have no issue with the ground. You'd see him in a similar mould to Champ, if you like, where you'd go on the 2.5 mile route and you'd decide then come March, do you want to go 3 or do you want to go 2.5? He's won a point. So he's going to get the trip, but he looked like he wanted every yard of 3 mile, but I don't think that was his true running. I said there's better than that in Chantry House, so I wouldn't judge him on that. As regards having both entries, it makes sense to have both options. And 2.5, obviously we saw Nico jocked up early in the week, and the 3 mile would led us to believe that was the route he was taking, but 2.5 was a good option for him if you looked at his form at what he'd done today. He won nicely in Ascot. There was a good bit of improvement expected, and with such a good run last season in the Supreme over 2, you wouldn't think he needed to step up to 3 just yet.
No, it'd be quite a rapid step up, wouldn't it? I think, like you say, for me, it was too bad to be true. I'm putting him on the keeping the faith list for the time being. I think too bad to be true. He is 20-1 at the moment for the Marsh novices, and the winner, Fusa Raffles, is actually 16th for the Marsh. We can move on to another question. The Presbury Park punter asks, with the Christmas period not far away, can you each give us 2 horses to look out for? One to watch in a graded contest and another to look out for in a handicap. Well, we do a tracker section each week, but we will answer your prayers. The Presbury Park punter, over to you, Tony. One for a handicap, one for a graded race.
Okay, well, catch me in the hop here a bit with the handicap. Really should have this prepared. I like maybe
Tony,
for the
you are aware we get sent
Yes. I do know that. For the Paddy Power at Leopardstown, interesting horse coming back of a long absence the last day. Farclap won a Triumph Ordle back in the day. I thought he shaped quite well in that novice handicap chase again. That Tornado Flyer was second in. Came from a long way back of a slow pace. He also made a pretty bad mistake down the back. He hadn't run in 19 months prior to that. 3 mile might be more his thing at this point. He could be interesting at a price for that. But my main interest so far, I suppose, Leopardstown wise, is having a few quid on a Plutard for the Savills chase there. It looks like it's going to be a brilliant race at the moment. Although you've Manila Indo and Champ at the top of the betting. The RSA form has taken a little knock or two, not a massive knock, but Allaho and Battle Over Diane were a little bit disappointing for me in the John Dorkins. Puts a little bit of a doubt in that. Champ will also be first time out. You'll never totally go broke backing about Nicky Henderson horses, maybe not to turn up. He might prefer a softer option travelling to Ireland first time out. I know he went with Bobsworth, but Bobsworth was more experienced at that point in his career than Champ would have been. I think we know what kind of we are with Delta Work and presenting Percy at this point, mid 160s horse. But I think a Plutard's got scope to improve again. He always needs his first run back, tends to come on an awful lot from that. He won at the meeting last year, winning the 2 mile race, but Henry de Bromhead seems to have got into it, and I think he's probably right. He just doesn't jump fast enough for 2 miles at this stage. Like, he was a horse that was winning the Close Brothers in really Chatham Street lad style, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
As I think he was only a 5-year-old then, so would give hope that he would stay at 3 miles. I know we tried 3 miles after that at Punchestown, but it was a long season after a massive effort. And the right-handed thing with him there as well. I thought in the Ryanair last year he looked like he wouldn't mind 3. That's quite a good piece of form, obviously, with Min coming out and winning another John Dorkin. You have a couple down the field that have run well. Duke de Ginevra, Shattered Love has shown up quite well this year. I just think he's a big price for the Savills, a horse with upside. I actually had a few quid on him for the Gold Cup at the start of the year, but I think he's a much better bet for this because it's the bare 3 miles. It's round a track that he's already won over, looks very effective over. You have no unlikely when maybe you might have one English horse coming over, and generally Alboom Photo isn't going to be there, and generally the Willie Mullins horses aren't particular. The Willie Mullins staying chasers, aren't particularly ready for Leopardstown at Christmas. So yeah, I kind of like him.
Like it, you made a very solid case. Barry, just a quick side note before I get your 2. Do you think Champ will tip up over there?
I think he will, yeah.
Yeah.
Tony was slagging off Nicky last week for picking his options, but he wants to go left-handed with Champ and he wants to go 3 miles. So the other option is right-handed around Kempton, which might as well be 2.5 miles. So I'd say Champ will be here if he's healthy and well. So no, I'd imagine that'll be the case. As regards my 2 horses, Tony, we should have compared notes beforehand because I've gone with Farclas as well.
Oh,
so.
Brilliant, even.
Well, there you go, guys. It's a surefire thing, right?
So, and in the graded, I'm keeping the fate with Saint Roy. I think he's going to reverse it with them all and throw in Honeysuckle as well. She does better for me going right-handed than she does left-handed, albeit she won the race last season. But in the Madison Hurdle, I think Saint Roy will put the record straight.
Like it a lot, right? Happy days. I'll take all of that. Thanks. You've made very valid cases. On that note, question time is over for this week, but as always, get involved. Any questions, send them our way. Weirder, stranger, the better. Anything you want to ask Tony or Barry, just fire them to us either on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you find it. Now we can look ahead to what we've got to look forward to this coming weekend, and it's all live on Sky Sports Racing because we're heading over to Ascot, where of course the main focus will be the long walk hurdle. And this is a division, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, the Stayers Hurdle division there's plenty of depth in there and they seem to be sort of clashing heads with a bit of regularity, which we like. And of course Paisley Park looks to take on Thyme Hill again with Sire de Burley thrown in there as well. Barry, I think I know which side of the fence you'll be falling on because you're a big Thyme Hill fan. You're not abandoning him now, are you?
No, definitely not. It was a good performance, obviously, in Newbury, but I think he was the one who was most unsuited by the slow pace because he ran keen for a lot of the race and he still finished out well. So, albeit he was getting a few pounds off Paisley Park on the day, I think he can hold the form, and even on level weights he won't have a problem. I think he's the stayer for the future. As regards Sire de Burley, has the option of Leopardstown, and I'd be surprised to see him want to take on Thyme Hill and Paisley Park when there's probably less to take on back in Ireland. So I'd imagine it's a better option for him is to go to Leopardstown. But between the two, it is a competitive race though. Apart from that, main fact is there. Roscana, I know they have a bit to improve, but they're definitely horses on the up. Main fact keeps winning, and Roscana has the mare's allowance. So it's not just a 2-horse race.
No, for sure. It's like you say, a deep enough race. Tony, what would your view be on it? Where would you be falling?
I'd echo a lot of what Barry's saying there. I think this Albert Bartlett is turning out to be a really key race for this season in the staying hurdles and also in some of these staying novice chases. The front 4 and that all look proper horses to pull the long way clear of the 5th. Did a lot of that just sort of after the last, and there were good horses back. Outside of them, the Janet Hills and the Wolf and a few of them that have been able to win over fences. So Thyme Hill is the one with the opposite. The only thing I would say though about Paisley Park, in Newbury, he made a sort of a mistake. I think it was 3 out, just the pace was lifting, which wasn't ideal. I wouldn't think that was particularly his target either, and especially they might be aiming more at this race. I finished off the race quite well. The only concern with him, I believe Ascot's due to get an awful lot of rain, and he was taken out last year when it got very heavy, so that may not be ideal. But that's a cracking race. But like Barry, I would agree. I don't know that Sire de Burley will be coming over for it. I think he'd be more inclined to wait for the Leopardstown Grade 1.
Yeah, that makes sense. For me, I think I said it before, but Paisley Park, I was always such a huge fan of, but I was so impressed with Thyme Hill, and the more I look back at his last run, the more I think, oh god, it's going to be very tough. Other things to look forward to, staying at Ascot, Dusart, a half to Simonsig, it's a 16 to 1 shot at the moment for the Supreme, from Nicky Henderson yard in the Simonsig colours, 1 from 1 so far, and I actually watched him school Barry about a week or so ago, and he was pretty foot perfect. He's a horse who's come, Nicky was saying he comes from, I think there's a place in Ireland and they jumped them over there, and he said, I got a ready-made racehorse, I think he said.
Well, he looked that way in Newbury. He was very good for a horse having his first run over hurdles, and he beat a very good horse in Soaring Glory who had experience as well. So it was a really good performance. They were hopeful going there, but I'm not sure they expected all they got. So he looks like a progressive sort. For me, he's the one horse in the race who could be the real deal. It's competitive, but there's lots of horses who have been beaten and have at different stages. So he's the horse who could be the one to set the mark. But he was so impressive in Newbury, you'd like to think he might go and follow up again.
Yeah, I'm excited by him. I think, yeah, like you say, he could be the real deal. So I think before you go then, we can just wrap up by giving you our tracker horses to follow, horses that have caught our eye over the last 7 days or that we want to flag up. I'll go first. Mine is Super 6, who won the Hereford Bumper on Saturday. It's only a 3-year-old from the Nigel Twiston-Davies team. Basically looked half fit in the paddock, a big raw horse, but absolutely gorgeous, and won cosily in the end. The positive is rider a couple of strides after the line, but other than that, it was a pretty decent performance. A 3-year-old Bumper, looking at him physically, would not be his thing at all, but he won it despite all of that. And look, he's not a horse that's going to be missed in the market, but he's a horse that I think will be pretty fun to follow. So yeah, Super 6 for me. Barry, who was yours, please?
I thought Benatar ran a big race. He would pull very hard early on. Then he seemed to settle going by the stands, but just got racing down the back straight. And I mentioned how Darragh O'Keefe gave the winner, Chatham Street Lad, a lovely ride, and he didn't get sucked into that early part of the pace down the back. And I think really they were going too quick, but I don't think it was any of Jamie Moore's fault, because Benatar just grabbed a hold of the bridle and wanted to get going. He was coming back after a little bit of an absence too, so I think to keep going as well as he did to get third just reflects a good run to me, and I think wherever he goes next he'll be worth following.
Okay, in the tracker. Tony, yours please?
Yeah, I thought Slim's pickings were pretty slim this week, to be honest, so I've gone for kind of an obvious one. Henry de Bromhead, Eclat de Rure. I hope I'm pronouncing French in a Monaghan accent. That's a good start, isn't it? Henry de Bromhead's horse that won the stay-in beginners chase at Punchestown last Tuesday. Henry de Bromhead is a trainer that doesn't really give much stock to bumpers, doesn't have that many bumper winners. He skipped bumpers altogether with this horse and only had a couple of quick runs in maiden hurdles last year. Won the second one of those impressively. It seems to be all about chasing with him. That was another race where quite a few fences were taken out, and I'd say that didn't suit him because he jumped particularly well. I thought he looked good when he got a lead. He might prefer that a little bit better than making out his own run, and there was a JP horse came at him between the last two, and I thought he just pulled out a bit more, and he had plenty in hand. Angle with him is as well, Henry de Bromhead had made a positive mention on him and a couple of little things that I read around the autumn time. It didn't seem a particularly obvious horse to be positive about, but he's one of these that the trainer seems to have improved massively for going chase, and he's long history of doing this with horses. Notebook been a very recent example. Special Tiara, very limited hurdler, put the kettle on again, not a great hurdler. This one lad might be the next one. I believe there's grade 1 options from there Christmas, but I got the impression of the trainer, a little bit like Manel Indo last year, they might take it slowly. I think there's a race there in Naas in late January, carefully selected one last year, probably be more in his line than going grade 1 just quite so soon.
Okay, like it. Well done, team. That brings the curtain down, I think, on the show for this week. This is kind of the lull before all the Christmas excitement. We've got plenty of stuff to bring you over the coming weeks, leading up to obviously the very busy period over Christmas. But of course, as always, please subscribe, please like, please comment, please get involved. We want to hear from you guys. That's what makes the show. Barry Geraghty, thank you very much. Oh, I've downloaded your audiobook. Third best $12.99 I've ever spent, so it's going well. I'm enjoying it.
I might ask what the other two $12.99 are.
No, please don't. One day I might divulge that information, but for now you've slotted into third place, $12.99. Tony, that's it from us. That's it from you. Anything else to add before we sign off, please?
No, have a good week and good luck if you're having any bets.
Thanks very much. That's it, everyone. Thanks for watching. As always, that was Off the Fence. Thank you very much.